Have you ever stood before a woman and felt your mind collapse? One pause in her eyes and your body freezes, your chest burns, your thoughts betray you. She says, "I am busy," and suddenly you see rejection, betrayal, the end. You are no longer a man, you are a prisoner of noise. Machiavelli warned that the mind you cannot rule will always be ruled by others. In this video, you will learn 6 ruthless principles to empty your mind, not just to escape her control, but to gain the lasting power of being untouchable in every part of life. 1. Do not chase false signals. The moment you start chasing signals is the moment you lose yourself. She looks away, her voice turns flat, her silence stretches, and suddenly your value begins to shrink. Not because she said anything final, but because you made her reaction more important than your own presence. Ethan was 34, a sales manager in Dallas. He thought he had everything under control until one evening at a crowded steakhouse. Across the table, Olivia stirred her drink and gave him that sideways glance, cool and unreadable. He felt a knot rise in his stomach. Her silence lasted only 5 seconds, but in his head it was an entire storm. He leaned forward and asked, "Are you upset? Did I say something wrong?" She smiled faintly, not with warmth, but with the calm of someone who now had the upper hand. Ethan kept talking, filling the air with explanations, apologies, promises. The more he spoke, the smaller he felt. He believed that her vague expression held a secret message, that if he decoded it correctly, he could win her back. What he did not see was that every extra word made her lean back further in her chair. Later that night, he replayed the scene again and again. The steakhouse noise faded in memory, but what stayed was her glance, that short silence, the tilt of her head. He realized he had been hypnotized by fragments, as if her smallest gesture carried the weight of truth. He had forgotten the simplest fact. Her actions, not her signals, had already spoken. She had been distant for weeks. She had stopped initiating. She was there physically, but she had already walked away. Ethan collapsed, not because she left, but because his own restless mind convinced him he could still be controlled. Machiavelli understood that illusions are the easiest traps. A ruler distracted by rumors destroys his state faster than by war. In love, the vague glance or delayed reply is the rumor. It is theater, smoke, a mask that hides nothing of substance. When you chase signals, you abandon reality. Power begins the moment you strip away illusion and measure only action. What comes next is not noise. It is the move that makes her addicted to your absence. He thought her silence was a puzzle that needed solving. She knew it was only a pause. Yet his panic gave it meaning, and his meaning gave her power. This is how men surrender, not by weakness of body, but by worship of shadows. How often has stillness from another person felt louder than your own voice? When was the last time her silence felt louder than your own voice? Be honest, and I will give you the move that flips that pause into power. Type a few words or drop a green check right now. Tonight, when the silence comes, resist the urge to explain or ask what is wrong. Let the pause stay a pause. Let her wonder if you noticed. Let her guess what you are thinking. In that stillness, you reclaim ground that was already yours. And if you feel the urge to break the silence, remember that the next principle will show you how to cut the chains of past betrayal and future fear, so your presence cannot be shaken again. Skip what comes next, and you will keep drowning in echoes of yesterday and fears of tomorrow. Watch the next part, and you will see why breaking those chains is the only way to become untouchable. 2. Cut free from the past and the fear of the future. The most dangerous prison is not the one built by another person. It is the one you carry inside your head. The ghost of yesterday whispers that you were betrayed once, and you will be betrayed again. The shadow of tomorrow screams that you will lose what you love before you can even hold it. A man who listens to both voices stops living in the only place he has any power, which is the present moment. Daniel was 37, a construction foreman in Chicago. He had built a steady life after years of grinding work, and he thought he had finally found stability with Rachel, a woman he met at a friend's barbecue. She was warm at first, quick to laugh, and he felt alive around her. But the cracks from his past never left. His ex-wife had left him for another man, and the betrayal had carved itself into his bones. Every time Rachel took longer than usual to answer his calls, the memory replayed. He saw her smiling at another man that did not exist, heard her laughing in a conversation he was not part of, felt her slipping away even when she was still beside him on the couch. One Friday night she told him she would be late from work. Daniel sat in his truck outside her apartment, engine off, staring at the door. His hands trembled as if the betrayal was already happening. When she finally arrived, tired and holding a bag of groceries, he exploded with accusations. She froze, her eyes wide with disbelief, then set the groceries down and walked past him in silence. In that moment, Daniel saw himself from the outside. A man chained not by her absence, but by the fear in his own mind. She had not betrayed him that night, but he had already betrayed himself. The weight of the past had stolen his present, and the fear of the future had poisoned what was still alive. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who acts on fears of tomorrow or memories of yesterday destroys his command. In politics, it is the rumor of an enemy that has not yet attacked, or the bitterness of a war that is already over. In love, it is the phantom betrayal and the imaginary loss that keep men weak. The stage is full of actors who never existed, and yet you bow to them. Power belongs to the one who acts here and now, not to the one haunted by shadows. What comes next is not memory or prediction. It is the single move that makes you impossible to control. He thought holding on to the pain made him prepared. She only saw a man already broken by ghosts. His fear of losing tomorrow smothered today. His loyalty to the past made him a stranger in the present. How many moments have been wasted because the chain of yesterday and tomorrow drowned the only moment that matters? Next time the ghost of betrayal shows up in your head, will you resist it or obey it? If you dare, say it, and I will show you how to chain the present to power. One word or the fire emoji is enough. Tonight, when the thoughts of betrayal or loss arrive, do not follow them. Do not ask if she is already gone. Do not repeat the old story. Breathe once and look only at what stands in front of you. Let the present moment be the only judge. In that simple act, you take back the ground that fear had stolen. And if that feels impossible, stay. Because the next principle will show you how to hold focus like carrying a glass filled to the brim without spilling yourself into illusions again. Turn away now, and the past will keep chaining your every step, while the future keeps mocking your every hope. Stay for the next part, and you will see why unshakable focus is the weapon that even silence cannot break. 3. Focus like carrying a glass of water. The moment you make her the center of your attention is the moment everything else begins to collapse. She becomes the glass you hold too tightly, and the tighter your grip, the more unsteady your steps become. Not because she asked for it, but because your mind decided that her reaction was more important than your own direction. Marcus was 29, a software engineer in Seattle. His colleagues respected him, he had a stable career, and his weekends were filled with long hikes in the Cascades. But when he met Emily, all of that steadiness began to shift. At first it was subtle. He would check his phone every few minutes, waiting for her reply. At work, his concentration slipped, lines of code blurred as he replayed her last words. One night they met at a small jazz club. She laughed with a friend at the bar, and Marcus froze. His drink in hand, he felt as if the room tilted. His eyes locked on her, desperate to decode every movement, every smile, every pause. The music faded, conversations blurred, and the only thing left in his world was the fear that she might not belong to him. When she returned to the table, she noticed his silence. "You're quiet," she said, with a half smile that did not reach her eyes. He forced a laugh and asked a meaningless question, but the tension was already there. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying her smile to someone else. He could feel his chest tighten, the glass spilling in his hands. Marcus realized that his life, once full of purpose, had narrowed to a single fragile point. It was not her presence that weakened him, it was his obsession that blinded him to everything else. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who stares only at one piece of his realm loses the rest. The kingdom rots while he obsesses over a single tower. In love, the man who stares only at her loses his balance, while the man who keeps his gaze steady on himself and the wider world becomes unshakable. Focus is not about ignoring her, it is about refusing to be consumed. The glass is steady only when the eyes know where else to look. What comes next is not attention, it is the way absence quietly makes its presence felt. He thought staring harder would protect what he feared losing. She only saw a man unbalanced, weighed down by his own anxiety. His focus collapsed, not because she left, but because his world had shrunk to a single fragile point. How much of your strength is focus, and how much is surrender to the noise in your head? When did you last freeze your whole life around a single woman's glance? Do not lie. I will show you why that mistake spilled all your strength. Write a few words or drop an X so others can see it too. Tomorrow, when your thoughts begin to circle, resist the urge to watch every detail of her behavior. Step back, shift your gaze, ask what you are building, not what she is feeling. You will notice the ground beneath you becoming steady again, and others will lean in, not because you chase them, but because they sense your balance. And if it feels impossible to hold that focus, wait, because the next principle will show you why silence itself is sharper than explanation, and why words often destroy what presence alone can protect. Leave now and you will keep spilling your strength for the smallest glance or gesture. Stay for the next part and you will learn why silence is not weakness. It is the sharpest weapon in the game of power. 4. Silence is a weapon, explaining is suicide. The moment you begin explaining is the moment you admit weakness. She asks why you did not answer fast enough, and you rush to justify. She goes quiet at dinner, and you scramble with reasons for your silence. Each word you throw out is not strength, it is surrender. You believe you are repairing the bond, but in her eyes, every explanation is proof that you fear losing her. Jonathan was 41, a financial advisor in Phoenix. Years of discipline had built his career, but discipline vanished when it came to the woman he loved. One evening, they met at a rooftop restaurant with city lights stretching behind her. She asked why he had been late, her voice calm but sharp at the edges. Jonathan immediately began to explain: traffic, last-minute calls from clients, the valet taking too long. Her eyes softened into boredom. She nodded politely, sipping her wine, and let him continue. The more he spoke, the more invisible he felt. Later, as they walked to the car, she turned to him and said, "You always have a reason. It makes me wonder what's real." Her words cut deeper than any accusation. He realized at that moment that his explanations were not protecting the relationship, they were draining it. In trying to clear his name, he had painted himself guilty. His silence that could have been powerful had turned into endless noise. The cold recognition hit him. He had confessed without ever being accused. Machiavelli wrote that rulers who justify themselves invite rebellion. Explanation is the mask of a man who has already surrendered his throne. Silence, on the other hand, is a blade sharper than any argument. In politics, it is the pause that makes the court tremble. In love, it is the unspoken that forces her to wonder, to lean in, to question. Power does not shout, it waits. Soon you will see why saying less does not just protect you, it pulls people closer. He thought explanations showed care. She saw them as weakness. He believed words would repair respect, but every word hollowed it out further. His need to be understood became the very proof that he was not worth understanding. How much of your speech is strength, and how much is noise betraying fear? When did you last rush to explain just to calm her silence? If you dare, share it, and I will show you how silence cuts deeper than excuses. One word or a clock emoji is enough. Type it now. Tonight, when questioned, resist the instinct to explain. Say less or say nothing at all. Let the silence stay in the room. You will notice how the absence of words carries more weight than any reason you could invent, and if you feel the urge to fill the silence, hold steady, because the next principle will show you why creating space, rather than filling it, turns fear into desire. Walk away now, and explanations will keep stripping your presence bare. Stay for the next part and you will see why empty space is not a weakness to escape, but a force that makes others chase what they cannot hold. 5. Create space, don't fill it. The moment you rush to fill silence is the moment you announce that your presence alone is not enough. She leaves a gap, and you treat it like a wound that must be covered. She withdraws for a night, and you throw words, calls, and attention at the emptiness. What you think is connection, she sees as desperation. Adrian was 32, a marketing specialist in Denver. He had been dating Claire for 6 months, and the pattern was always the same. When she went quiet, he panicked. One weekend, she spent a day without texting him, and by evening he had sent 5 messages. None were angry, all were polite, but each one carried the same undertone: fear of losing her. When she finally replied, it was only 2 words: busy today. Adrian felt a pit in his stomach. He told himself he was being a good partner, attentive and caring. But that night at her apartment, as he told a long story to break the silence, she stared past him at her phone. He realized with a chill that she was not ignoring him because she was upset. She was ignoring him because she already knew he would fill every empty moment. His value shrank not through neglect, but through over-delivery. She did not have to reach for him because he was always already there. Machiavelli taught that absence creates more fear than presence. A ruler who steps back from the crowd makes the crowd lean forward. In love, silence is the stage on which desire grows. Filling space with endless words is like flooding a garden with water until nothing can breathe. Restraint is the weapon that forces others to feel the cost of your presence by confronting its absence. In 30 seconds, I will show you why silence becomes a signal and scarcity becomes leverage. He believed constant attention was proof of devotion. She felt it as proof of need. He thought filling silence built intimacy. She only saw emptiness masked by noise. And when she stopped reaching, his value had already dissolved into the void he could not leave untouched. How much of what is given is real presence, and how much is fear of being forgotten? If you could whisper one command to yourself before you flooded her silence with words, what would you say? Be ruthless, and I will rewrite it in Machiavelli's voice. One short line or the book emoji is enough. Tonight, when she goes quiet, do not move first. Do not fill the empty space with explanations or chatter. Let the silence sit. Let her feel the absence rather than you rushing to erase it. Soon you will notice that people lean closer, not because of what you said, but because of what you did not. And if the idea terrifies you, hold on, because the next principle will show you how to become the wall that no one can break, the presence that cannot be moved. Skip what comes next and you will keep running to fill every pause, draining your value with each word. Stay for the next part and you will learn why becoming the silent wall is the final step to being untouchable. 6. Empty your mind. Become the silent wall. The greatest shift comes when the games stop working on you. She tests with silence and nothing stirs. She hints at the past, and your face stays calm. She speaks of tomorrow with uncertainty, and you do not flinch. What once pulled you into chaos now passes through you like wind against stone. The moment you no longer respond as expected is the moment you step out of her control. Anthony was 35, a paramedic in Boston. His days were filled with emergencies, yet none shook him as much as the silence of the woman he loved. With Sarah, he had always been the one to chase, to explain, to fill the gaps with endless words. Each pause from her felt like a test he could not afford to fail. One evening, after a long shift, he sat across from her at a small Italian restaurant. She leaned back, arms crossed, her eyes searching for weakness. "You don't care like you used to," she said softly, almost daring him to beg. In the past, he would have spilled apologies, promised more time, promised more love. That night, he only looked at her and let the silence stay. Her expression flickered, first annoyance, then confusion. The fork in her hand hovered as if waiting for him to break, but he did not. He finished his glass of water, steady as a wall. She shifted in her chair, uncomfortable in the emptiness she had created. For the first time, it was she who spoke again, her voice less certain than before. Anthony realized at that moment that the game had turned. What once weakened him now strengthened him. His calm was no longer submission, it was power. Machiavelli warned that the fortress is not built of stone, but of presence. A ruler who cannot be shaken by illusion rules longer than one who reacts to every rumor. In love, the fortress is the empty mind, the wall that no glance or silence can crack. When she throws the mask of manipulation, it breaks against the surface of stillness. Power belongs to the one who does not move when pushed. What comes next is not resistance, but gravity itself, the force that pulls others back when they realize they cannot move you. He once believed that chasing proved love. She only saw a man who could be controlled. He thought filling silence protected the bond. She felt it as noise. When he emptied his mind, when he stood without panic, the weight of his presence became undeniable. How much of what breaks you is her power, and how much is your restless mind betraying you? What is one moment this week where you will stay calm instead of chasing her test? If you dare, declare it, and I will give you the strategy to guard your fortress. One word or the shield emoji is enough. Drop it now. Tonight, when the urge comes to speak, to chase, to justify, hold still instead. Let the silence grow heavy in the room. You will see how quickly others bend under the weight of your calm. And if fear rises in your chest, remember that the fear is not weakness. It is the sign that you are stepping into power. What follows will show you how to keep this fortress standing, not only in love, but in every arena where respect is won. Skip the next part and you will keep breaking yourself for illusions, forever dancing in games that were never yours. Stay, and you will understand why the final truth binds everything together, giving you the blueprint to remain untouchable in every corner of life. This is where everything comes full circle. What you just watched was never about tricks to impress women or lines to memorize. It was about reclaiming the ground you stand on, through silence, scarcity, and control over your own thoughts. You saw how less panic means more presence, how less chasing means more power. This isn't about being cold or detached. It is about becoming untouchable. The man who does not move when tested is the man who commands respect without asking. You don't need to beg to be chosen. You don't need to fight for attention. The calm you hold inside is what makes others lean in. One of our viewers, Daniel, a 29-year-old engineer from New York, sent us his story last month. For years he confessed he was ruled by the noise in his head. Every pause in a text, every change of tone sent him spiraling into panic. He was always the one to explain, to chase, to plead. After applying the principle of emptying his mind, everything changed. On a date where silence once would have broken him, he stayed calm. Instead of apologizing for things he didn't do, he held still. She leaned in closer, intrigued by his composure. Weeks later, he told us, "The moment I stopped reacting, I stopped losing. For the first time, I felt like the prize instead of the pursuer." You could be next. Subscribe now, because the shift begins quietly inside you, but it changes the way the world sees you forever.